Okay, let's get started then. I'm Chris Clark. I work in the Office of Teaching, Learning, and Technologies. Specifically, I do learning spaces, and this is presentation light, so feel free to interrupt me. What I really wanted to talk about is an idea I've had, not necessarily well researched, but the idea of leveraging our students on campus as authors or creators in the learning spaces. And specifically, you might ask, well, how exactly are we approaching that? And maybe not in a traditional authorial sense, but more in the sense that we've been watching students, watching them a lot. I've had staff that have gone out into our facilities over the last 2 years conducting both surveys with faculty and instructors. Anybody got a visit from William Dawson or from a student in their courses? We've done rooms as large as McBride. We've done pretty much every remodeled classroom in the last 2 years. Nobody? Okay, well, perhaps you'll be getting a visit this year. But we go through, we have some fairly straightforward rubrics that we present to our students, asking them about the condition of lighting, seating, projection quality, and start to see what's washing out. We also, in select locations, we're watching where the rooms would end up after students have been using the spaces or after instructors have been using the spaces. And so we saw quite a bit of change, yeah.
You have the rubric? You have the rubric?
I do. I don't have it offhand, but Sam Van Horn developed it for us. You know, Sam in our office. I'd be happy to share it. So anyways, yeah, we started watching how these spaces were getting used and manipulated by our students, particularly, is where we were interested in this. And had some observations that came out of this. I'm not exactly sure why I put this slide in here. This is one that I put in most of my learning spaces slides. This is an old chemistry lecture from quite some time ago, not on our campus. What we found, in summary, I'll cut through the treadle here and cut to the chase. We found that students like space to move. We found students like seats that can move. So not just having furniture that's flexible, but also having actual space that you can move around. Easy power access was coupled with BYOD freedom. Anybody want to fill in BYOD? This is the right crowd. I guess I don't need to really refresh on that. Writing surfaces and a variety of those. And then space for stuff. Right? These things don't necessarily seem revolutionary, but I'm going to show you a couple of pictures and places where we made fairly minor changes. And I'm not talking about necessarily the $400,000 tile style changes to classrooms, but what I'm really looking at here and where I thought I'd spend some time talking today are some lo-fi changes that we've made to classrooms across campus, and we're trying to keep making changes to classrooms across campus that really leverage that student authorship and that student experience in the room. Some of the whys, some of the benefits of doing these things, and we sort of talked about what we found the students wanted. Accessibility. And I mean this in a couple of different ways. Being able to get around your classroom is a priority, not just for individual students, but for students with disabilities. We have a lot of students with disabilities on campus that adapt to a variety of different furniture, and not just even disabilities, but people with different body types. You know, one of the things actually from an instructor perspective you might find interesting is, I actually can't stand these things. If you're Sarah, who was in here, anybody in here for Sarah previously? The difference between me standing behind this and Sarah standing behind this is monumental, right? And so we've started to, in a variety of classrooms, put height-adjustable furniture in for students that could adjust for, and for faculty as well, actually, so that we can adjust to those different body types, to the height, even to weight in chairs. We want to be adaptable. We want classrooms that can adapt to both the way the students want to experience the class, but also how you as faculty and instructors want to teach in this classroom. So not necessarily being so prescriptive with how a class experience should occur based upon the furniture. This room here particularly, I mean, it does sort of push it to you guys watching me or watching the computer, right? So that's most adaptive to this. Ergonomics. I've had the great pleasure of working with David Wilder in the College of Engineering. You know David, he is very passionate about ergonomics, and so he's been a part of our Learning Spaces group, and with him, we've been really partnering to try some different furniture experiments, some standing classroom designs. I'll show some pictures of those later. Really working with how we can improve the student experience, not just from a physiological perspective in terms of is it contributing to their long-term health, but also potentially contributing to their focus and attention in the classroom. We looked at things being cost-effective in these cases. In some cases, the changes we're making actually, I think, improve some of the the bottom line experiences that bean counters like myself look at with the university in terms of the cost of manipulating these rooms and increasing the functionality of a room as opposed to separating out functionalities. And then ultimately, we tried to create spaces that are more learner-centric. And this really gets to that student authorship notion that I sort of introduced here. That really we want these spaces to be focusing a little bit less on me as the instructor and allow for the focus to be as much on the experience of the students in the spaces. So, straightforward enough? Yeah.
So, with all these considerations and effort and cost, if a person were to say, I don't need this room because I'm going online, do you have a value of that in terms of free space that is not needed?
You know, that's a great question because really there's a couple ways you could measure that, right? And one of them is in the net maintenance cost of the institution. And it's also in the opportunity cost of what else could be done in that space. I don't have a good answer for that on aggregate. And that's a good question. If I come up with the sauce, I'll stop by the tech transfer office here and see if I can get some money out of the idea. I'll show you what we come up with. But I think
I'd like to ask
it's a
for a
very
raise
germane.
sometime.
It's a very germane point. So let's take a look at some of these spaces. This is really if you've been to a Chris Clark presentation, this is the meat of my presentations. I like to do before and afters. This is a classroom in EPB. Anybody teaching in NPB? It's a lovely space, right? Especially in the basement during those hot, humid times, right? Where you really get that mold up in your system. And so we have a pre and post picture here. These might actually end up being slightly different rooms, but for all practical purposes, they have the same seat count, same basic functionality, same sort of courses taught in this space. So what we ended up doing was switching fairly simply. We added writing surfaces. We switched the chairs in these spaces. I think we actually gave it a coat of paint too, but it didn't necessarily contribute. But I wanted to focus on a couple of things here. So previously I said students were wanting space to move around. So in this classroom here, there's around 45 seats. This room here, when we looked with Renee Hauser, and if you don't know Renee, Renee and I are usually attached at the hip when it comes to classroom designs like this. Renee was there to say, look, we have 45 seats in there, but really, we're never hitting more than 33 students in the class, right? So what we did, we spaced it out. This allows for a couple of different things. This classroom here, try and put these chairs in a circle. It's a geometric problem, right? It's not straightforward and easy to do. You inevitably have somebody in the middle, or you have too deep. This room here, we can come up with a variety of arrangements. So we made a straightforward change to the space and actually reduced the seat count. How sustainable that will be if we add 10,000 students to the university, that's an interesting question. But the satisfaction numbers in terms of the space here, very positive. These chairs are a little bit different, aren't they? These things are movable. They've got casters. They've got almost twice as much real estate up here. I talked about students having a desire to bring stuff to class, right? And depending on what's being taught in this class, if we're having a conversational foreign language class, there might not be as much stuff. But if I have somebody that's getting bumped out of engineering coming over here, they're going to want a textbook, something to draw on, probably one of those old-fangled calculators. Do people still use those graphing calculators that I used to use when I was in school? They do, right? Okay.
Texas is series.
Yeah, exactly, the TI series, right? That all takes up real estate, right? And so at least when I was a student, you would have the textbook, or you'd have your notes up here, you'd have your calculator on your knee, and you'd sort of, God forbid, you had to work in groups, you had to sort of, hop over a little bit. I promised I'd do some dancing because we're dancing robots, so that's about all you get yet. Fairly modest changes. Anybody want to guess what the total cost of this project was? Above or below 10,000? Below. You could do an awful lot of these rooms for the cost of one of our tile classrooms. Now, that's not to say that the tile room doesn't have its place. But what we got here in terms of post-assessment results out of our students and out of our instructors, very positive for the amount of money that we were putting into the space. Yeah?
I was just trying, can you explain the table? The table's not attached to the chair.
It is actually. I'll skip a couple of slides ahead and show you a different model of it. This is a different manufacturer. This is from Steelcase. And the idea behind these chairs, they're castered at the bottom. They also have a pivot at the middle here. So you can spin 360 degrees in these. It's an extra large tablet arm. These can also be pushed behind the back of the chair. So my friend Kelly Nepple teaches sign language, ASL, right? And one of the things they like in this space here is they can push those things behind them, and you no longer have that medium in between you and another person when you're trying to sign out, right? So this is a chair on steroids, or a tablet armchair on steroids. The converse of these is they do take up a little bit more space. Previously, we would plan for around 16 to 17 square foot per person. On a seat like those old tablet arms I was showing you, these we plan for around 20 to 22, give or take, depending on the size of the room. So they do take up more space, but they're also a lot more comfortable. Yeah? Yeah, actually, you can, not so much on this one, but part of the reason we like this chair here is that this tablet can go all the way around and come to the other side. I'm left-handed myself, and I find these chairs are quite comfortable. I think if you're wanting to try one of these, I think they actually have a couple of them over here at the help desk that we use for people waiting in that space. Yep. Yes. These things are, they are, and in fact on a scale of, I think on a standard Likert scale, 1 to 5, satisfaction with these was usually 2.5 to 3. These it was 4 plus. You know, much higher satisfaction from the students. Yeah.
Do anything in this room to increase connectivity?
So we couldn't in this space here. We really wanted to, but I've got some other pictures of some places where we have done that. But that's a great point of something that we wanted to do in a variety of our learning spaces. The Learning Commons, I'm sure most of you have been there. We came into that space with a goal of having 90% of the seats within 4 feet of an electrical outlet, and I think we were successful there. That's a much more expensive proposition to add electricity to the spaces. But I'll give you some examples where we've done it well. This was a project here, if anybody knows Kathy Shue in the College of Education. We partnered with Kathy to build this classroom out. This is Linguist Center 202. Got a nice before and after sort of space here. They have these lovely walls that are sort of a straw that's glued to the wall, and they used this asbestos-based glue to glue to the wall, so it was even more fun taking these out. So you can see again, this is a space where we had density, right? If you wanted to have people in the round, you get them too deep, right? And here, this is somewhat flexible. This space here. This is one of the classrooms where we ask students actually, well, in all of our classrooms, we ask how often the furniture gets moved around. All the classrooms that we've taken a look at so far, this room actually had the highest amount of furniture moving around in this space. And these are two-piece pieces of furniture. This is a separate table from an individual chair. Again, I think we pulled 1 or 2 seats out of this space, but not enough that it was changing the actual course assignments that were going in here. We added a fresh coat of paint. Again, this project here, under $10,000. These were fairly lo-fi projects. Now, I know $10,000 is a lot of money, right? But in the scheme of things, compared to what we're putting into some of the larger classrooms, you know, on campus where we're adding a bunch of technology, the thing that will break a project like this is budget really quickly is adding electricity. And that's always a challenge for us. Yes?
What are whiteboards?
Whiteboards depends on whether you want glass or white. Glass, I usually figure for a 4x8, around $3,500. For a standard 4x8 whiteboard, I usually figure it
As far as wall space goes, boy, whiteboards, more the merrier.
Yep. So actually, in this room here, you can see this is new writing surface. We tried to use some here. We really debated this space actually here. Let's take a look.
In tile rooms that I use, whiteboard just used more than anything.
And so actually, one of the great pieces I'll show you here, I'm going to bounce around again. I'm really intrigued with this product here. This is another piece by Steelcase. This is a Vertray. And the idea we've been having with these is, Jane Russell keeps complaining to me about it in these large lecture halls. There's just too much space. We can't really have students when there's 70 seats in a room go up to the walls because, frankly, you run out of space, right? So one of the notions we've had designing the new senior center annex is, let's start putting some more of these in play so that we can either pass them down the aisles, or maybe instead of having this as a modesty panel here, we have some pegs here in front of the modesty panel where we can make those whiteboards so you can take them off for instructional spaces. They're not huge. These are 20 by 30, I think, but they're double-sided, you know, and they clean up fairly easily, and most of our students have built-in capture devices for real quick, let's take a look at a couple of other spaces here. This is actually one of my favorite rooms. This was a signature David Wilder partnership here. This is Siemens Center 4030, and I didn't have a before picture that I could show you, but I picked actually what's normally a nice room over here at Pomerantz Center, and you can see some of the differences here, and some of you can't necessarily see. The piece that I thought this picture did well, this entire back row here is standing height chairs. So imagine that back row where you guys are right now. We brought it up to bar stool height. You can lean against the back wall, although there is some writing surfaces behind there, so the students can turn around quickly. These chairs actually fill up earlier than the other seats. You can watch the classroom fill up. You know, maybe not the best if you want to be in a 4-hour lecture, but it does a couple of different things. One, it allows those students like myself that if you want to stand in a classroom, I mean, I know the big thing in offices is standing height furniture. It gives those people that option. It also, though, improves the sight line, seeing the instructors, right? As we start to look at larger, deeper classrooms in the Siemens Center Annex, one of the problems we keep running into is we want to have a flat floor for flexibility, but we also want the back part of the room to be able to see a projection screen. And you can only make a ceiling so high. By elevating people in the back, we suddenly are sort of adding a tier without adding an extra stacked piece of floor. We're still maintaining that flexibility. This furniture is all reasonably movable. Nothing's anchored in here. Again, we added writing surfaces on the back wall here. There's actually a writing surface here. Writing surface here as well. I talked about electrical access. This is the trickiest piece. And when we can build new space, we have opportunities to add electrical service. And so actually, we're doing 4 classrooms up in Van Ellen right now. If anybody's taught, has anybody taught in a science education room, 464, 462? These are horrible general assignment classrooms right now. They tend to be overflow for foreign language right now, and I think some of the physics classes get stuck in there. I should have grabbed a picture of these because they really are just epically not suited for the type of instruction that happens in there.
Dungeons.
What's that?
We used to call them dungeons.
The dungeons, yeah. They're a full standard deviation at least off of where our average classroom satisfaction is. So we're, with funding from the Provost's office, gutting these, and we are putting power in those spaces. It won't be quite as elegant as we've got in here. These rooms here, you can see you've got power at each one of these locations. And I talk about the BYOD freedom. One of the things that I've found fascinating with the tile piece that's influencing my planning is that, so when we watch students in here, probably 30% of our students we're seeing bringing their own computers in, and they're actually disconnecting this laptop here. They're plugging the HDMI in, and they're plugging their own laptop in. So we want to provide power access for that, right? And frankly, you know, one of the things that was a little vexing to me when I first came in here to this room to present is I wanted to plug this in. I didn't really want to have to use the podium machine, right? I think that's a reasonable expectation. If nothing else, it's because, you know, I'm a little bit of a jerk-off right now this time of year, and I don't want to have to share that keyboard with everybody else, right? So providing that power here. In the rooms in Van Ellen, we're going to be using these towers here, I think, for distributing power. And if you've been in the Learning Commons, you've probably seen one or two of these poking around. And so the idea is we'll put a floor box, not unlike this thing right here. If you look under your table, your wires all, you know, fairly and elegantly go into these little boxes. We're going to put one of these little towers right above it. And these things here have, I think, 8 duplex sockets on them. They also have, on each one of them, 2 or 4, I should have made that a little bit bigger, USB connections. So you can charge your iPad, you can charge your tablet, you can charge your cell phone. And the idea behind this, we're going to put these in rooms with tablet arm chairs. These tablet arms like this. And the notion is that you can group these in a variety of different sizes. You can get power at one of these outposts. But again, we're making the space more adaptable. There'll be writing surfaces in the room. You get the idea. And that, in and of itself, as we're remodeling that room, then it becomes a lot more cost-effective for us to use power out of the space. Last product I wanted to sort of show you here, we're putting these in more and more classrooms, and I didn't have a great picture of one. Like, this is an AirTouch table, and this, again, gets a little bit to that notion of the height adjustability, standing height, seating height. We specifically have gone towards these because usually the gold standard in ADA stuff was to make sure that somebody could roll a wheelchair underneath the table, right? But what we're finding is, with a variety of disabilities, there's a variety of different heights that our students and individuals using these classrooms want to be at. So it's not just wheelchair. It's, I'm on a cart, you know. I'm a senior, you know, I'm a senior and I have one of those little rascal scooter things that I always think would be fun to race, right? That's an entirely different height, right? We see these things like this. We also see those with students that want to stand or have back issues and need to stand. And so we're putting in each room where we're having table heights like this. We'll now have 1 or 2 stations that are adjustable table height like that flexibility. Again, reacting to the student using the space. So I think I probably ran my time a little bit long here, but again, quasi, you know, the next step of this is actually, ideally, we need to get some of Sam's time and actually measure whether any of this stuff actually matters. We know with confidence that it matters in terms of student satisfaction in these spaces, and as well as instructor satisfaction. And we know loosely from Sam's work that can correlate to you know, a positive student experience and learning outcomes in the classroom. But you know, I think the next step is probably to be a little bit more conscious in measuring which of these things that we put in place will do that.
I taught a class in the main classroom we're in right now, Rose. And we had a safety issue with everyone on the side plugged in to the wall.
Yep.
And we had a number of calls for computers that went to the floor. Because, so I had to make a rule, okay, you don't plug in until everybody says you pull it out. But have you had those safety kind of issues?
Yeah, the ideal in that case is that you move the row to the middle of the classroom potentially and separate the chairs off into 2 sides so that then, you know, you're butting up. Depending on which classroom you're in, we have furniture that either greatly accommodates that or is barely adequate for that. So we actually did a project this summer in Schaefer Hall. If you teach in 131 or 151, these are rooms that had heavy weighted tables, and the way these tables were constructed, they would have sort of a T-brace at the bottom, and the bottom piece would be sort of a heavy metal piece. And the idea was to keep the table from tipping over with only having one leg up. The problem with that is it makes it very difficult to move those tables around. We replaced them with a fairly lightweight product that has 4 legs that are on casters, and then affords us the ability to sort of spread those out. We know as much as we want the rooms to be adaptable, that class to class, instructors really aren't pushing those things around a whole lot. It's just the time issue. You've got 2 minutes in between class. It's hard to manipulate those, but it does allow us to have those different configurations and press them up against the wall a little bit differently.
That's a really good idea.
Other questions, comments? All right, well, thank you for humoring me. Go grab a cookie and enjoy the rest of the day.